Hi my loves, welcome back to my channel. Today I'm super excited because I'm going to be doing a true crime case which I haven't done since I started my channel. So today we are going to be discussing the case of Dr. Hawley Harvey Crippen. There have been a couple of films made about this guy and this case, so you may already be familiar. So before we get started, if you haven't already, please go ahead and press the subscribe button. I just want to take a second to say thank you so much to everyone who has subscribed already. I have just gone past the 100 subscriber mark and triple digits. And I'm so grateful for each and every single person who has subscribed, who has watched my videos. It means so much. I get so excited every single time a new subscriber notification pops up on my phone. So thank you from the bottom of my heart, honestly. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey. And remember, if you haven't already, go and click the subscribe button now. Okay, so let's get into today's case. Hawley Harvey Crippen was born on September 11th, 1862 in Coldwater, Michigan. He studied homeopathy and graduated from the Homeopathic Medical College in 1884 when he was 22 years of age. He then married his first wife, Charlotte, and together they had a son, Hawley Otto Crippen. When little Hawley was just 2 years old, sadly, Charlotte died of a stroke in 1892. Being a budding young doctor, Hawley decided that being a single father wasn't really in the best interests of his child. So he decided to leave his son in the care of his parents, who at the time lived in California. At this point, now Dr. Crippen moved across the country to New York, where he began practicing his homeopathy. And it was here where he met his second wife, Corinne, or Cora for short, Turner. Cora was quite a flamboyant character, very over the top, very much fancied herself to be a celebrity and to enjoy a lifestyle where she was adored and could perform. She attempted to carve out a career for herself as a music hall singer, though according to the research, very few people would agree that she would have the talent to be able to pursue that sort of career. She has been described as quite a dominant, overbearing character, particularly where it comes to her husband. And it has been alleged that she had several affairs quite openly, despite the embarrassment and shame that that would have caused her husband. So it really doesn't sound like it's the happiest of marriages. In 1894, which is the same year that he got married to Cora, Dr. Crippen begins working at Dr. Munyon's, which was a pharmaceutical company specializing in selling homeopathic medicines. In 1897, Dr. Crippen and Cora decide to make the move across the Atlantic to go and start a new life in England. But unfortunately, the qualifications that he'd gained back in the States weren't transferable and weren't recognized when he finally made the move. And so he decided to take up a different position within the Dr. Munyon's company and became a pharmaceutical distributor. So they've moved over to England and Dr. Crippen is setting himself up in his career, and Cora still very much fancies herself as becoming a celebrity. She still has these big dreams, but it's backed up by little talent. Now, despite the fact that Cora doesn't sound like the nicest of wives, she's having these affairs, Dr. Crippen still has complete faith in her. He encourages her to follow her dreams. He puts a lot of money into her being able to pursue her singing career. He even begins to manage her career in the hope that he can turn her into a star. Part of their attempt to make Cora a star involves very little performance, and they gear their efforts more towards becoming part of the inner circle of the big names in entertainment of the time. Now, this backfires spectacularly because in 1899, Dr. Crippen gets fired from his position as the pharmaceutical distributor because he's spending so much time on Cora's career and very little on his own. But he goes on, he finds another job. He becomes the manager of the Druids Institution for the Deaf. And life seems to settle back down to normal. But then comes a spanner in the works. Dr. Crippen decides to hire a young, beautiful secretary, and eventually the two embark on an affair and begin to fall in love. This young woman was named Evelyn EV, and by 1905, when Dr. Crippen and his wife move into the now infamous house at 39 Hilldrop Crescent, Dr. Crippen and Ethel are in a well-established affair. Meanwhile, Dr. Crippen and Cora's relationship continues to disintegrate. Cora constantly nagging at her husband and emasculating him, and in return he showed her no affection. He's described as being quite cold and reserved. So we fast forward, Dr. Crippen is still having an affair. That's been going on for many, many years now, but he's still married to Cora, as we're talking about the beginning of the 1900s. Divorce wasn't the norm back in those days. So we're now at the 31st of January 1910, and Dr. Crippen and Cora decide to throw a dinner party at their home in Hilltop Crescent for two of their close friends, Paul and Clara Martinetti. The evening went as you would expect it to go. Dr. Crippen and Cora were arguing, nagging at each other. Cora was said to be making jokes at his expense, which must have been super comfortable for the dinner guests to sit and watch. So Paul and Clara left the dinner party at around 1 a.m. and that would be the last time that anybody would see Cora alive. So obviously, when nobody sees Cora, she is a very sociable woman. She's got a large amount of friends. She's very much about being seen in the right places with the right people. And when that doesn't happen, people start asking questions. You know, where is she? And initially, Dr. Crippen told everyone that she had simply gone back to America. He then changed his story that she had been having an affair with another man and had left him. And it changed once again when he decided to tell other people that she was ill. Eventually, he changed his story and told people that she had died, in the hope, you would guess, that people would stop asking questions. But actually, all that did in the changing of the story was raise suspicions in everybody. Why would you be telling people different stories unless they were lies? So his original story, in fact, any of the stories could have been very plausible had he have just stuck to one story and been consistent throughout. It was well known she'd had an affair, so would it be reasonable to think that she had met somebody and gone off with them? Yeah, probably. She's from America. Is it reasonable that she would have gone back there? Yeah, you could believe that. But if the changing of the stories wasn't enough to make people suspicious, everyone started to notice that Ethel, Dr. Crippen's mistress, was suddenly walking around in Cora's jewellery. Now, if she had left, wouldn't that be one of the things that she would pack to take with her? And then by the end of February, so less than a month after Cora is supposed to have left or ran off with someone, Ethel moves in to Dr. Crippen's home. So Cora's friends, sick of asking questions and getting different answers, worrying now that Ethel's moved in, this seems a bit sinister, they decide to go to the police and ask them to investigate. So the police go along to Hilltop Crescent, they do a quick search around the house with Dr. Crippen's blessing, and they don't find anything. They question him about the changing of his stories, and he admits that yes, he lied about that. But what had really happened was she had left him for another man, and he was simply embarrassed by that, which is why he'd made up several different stories to try and mask the shame that he was feeling. He even named a music hall actor, Bruce Miller, as the man that she had left him for. It's pretty basic of lying, isn't it, that you keep things simple? When you try and throw in more details than is necessary, that's when you're likely to get caught out. But clearly, Dr. Crippen was smart in some ways and not so smart in others. Based on their initial investigation, the police were satisfied that Dr. Crippen probably had no involvement in his wife's disappearance, that there probably wasn't anything sinister going on, and the balance of probabilities was that she probably had left and gone off with somebody else. They were happy that she was most likely alive and well back in the United States. Yet again, Crippen could have had a cover-up that was believable and plausible, but he made yet another error and raised even more suspicion. He didn't wait around to see that the police were satisfied with the responses that he'd given them. He decided that he was going to go on the run. I'm sure all of his friends and all of Cora's friends, the first thing they're going to think is, who runs if you're not guilty? So Dr. Crippen, together with Ethel, decide that they're going to leave England quickly, and using disguises, they board a ship that was bound for Canada called the SS Montrose. So this is pretty bizarre behaviour to go on the run when you've allegedly done nothing wrong, and so the police decided that it warranted further investigation, and they went back to search Dr. Crippen's house a further 3 times. The first 2 times, again, they found nothing, but on the last time they made a gruesome discovery. When they went down into the basement, they removed part of the brick flooring, and underneath they found a human torso. It wasn't a full body. There was no head, there were no arms or legs, and even the skeleton had been removed. So the remains were sent in for analysis, and as the police had suspected, the remains were found to belong to Cora. Now, the doctor carrying out the analysis was able to identify Cora by a very distinctive scar on her abdomen that she had received from a surgery that she had recently had. You think back in those days they didn't have the advancements that we have today with DNA testing and the like. And without that one scar, it's very, very likely that they wouldn't have been able to say with certainty that this particular torso belonged to Cora. The pathologist that carried out the analysis actually was also able to find traces of the drug hyoscine in the tissue on the torso. This really was an exciting time in forensic science, and it was really beginning to advance in quite a huge way. So while the police are carrying out their investigation still back in England, Dr. Crippen and Ethel are still aboard the SS Montrose on their way to Canada. And as I said earlier, they were in disguise. Now, the disguise that they chose, again, becoming a recurring theme, raised massive suspicion, because Dr. Crippen decided that it would be a good idea for Ethel to disguise herself as his son. And so he had made Ethel dress up as a young boy in the hope that they would avoid capture. So while he was hoping to avoid detection, this actually had a completely opposite effect, because whilst they were in physical disguise, they were still very affectionate with one another. And of course, if you see an adult supposedly with their son kissing and holding hands, that's going to ring some alarm bells for anybody. And that's exactly what happened on the ship. By the time the ship had set sail, the news of Cora's death had become widespread national news, and the police had taken advantage of the newspapers as a way to try and hunt Dr. Crippen and Ethel. So Dr. Crippen and Ethel were travelling in the first class section of the ship, and when the passengers started to raise suspicions, they obviously went and spoke to the captain. Captain Henry George Kendall decided to go and have a look for himself. It wouldn't have been unusual for the captain to, you know, be seen in the first class section of the ship, greeting the passengers, checking that everybody was okay. And he, having seen the newspapers, immediately recognised that these were the fugitives that the police were trying to hunt. And The interesting thing about this case is, had Crippen have chosen to travel with the poorer passengers, it was very likely that, again, he would have got away with it. It's all of these silly mistakes that are building up and building up and building up. He could have got away with this many, many, many times, because the ship's captain would never have gone down into second or third class. So it would have been far easier to go undetected had he have done that. Now, unfortunately for Dr. Crippen, this was a time where wireless technology was coming into its own, and the SS Montrose was one of the first ships to be fitted with this wireless technology. And because of that technology, Captain Kendall was able to send a message through to the British police to alert them to the fact that Crippen and Ethel were aboard the ship. Now, I've got the Telegraph, and it read, "Have strong suspicions that Crippen, London Cellar Murderer, and accomplice are among saloon passengers. Moustache taken off, growing beard. Accomplice dressed as boy. Manner and build, undoubtedly a girl." So by this point, they're fooling nobody. And so upon receiving this information, the police believe that this is a very viable lead that they need to follow. And so what they do is they hop on a faster ship, the SS Laurentic from Liverpool, and beat Crippen to Canada. So all of this is going on. Ethel and Crippen are on the boat, and they are seemingly unaware that any of this is happening. In their minds, they are getting away with it. They're going to start this new life in Canada. Little did they know that Chief Inspector Dew from the Scotland Yard division of the police force had boarded the SS Montrose. Captain Kendall invites Crippen and Ethel to come and meet with him, which would have been an incredible honour, and clearly was one that Crippen couldn't refuse. So you can imagine his shock and horror when he walks into the room, only to be met by the British police. Now, reportedly, Chief Inspector Dew said to Crippen, "Good morning, Dr. Crippen. Do you know me? I'm Chief Inspector Dew from Scotland Yard." To which Crippen replied, "Thank God it's over. The suspense has been too great. I couldn't stand it any longer." And upon that, held out his arms to be arrested. So on the 31st of July, 1910, both Crippen and Ethel are arrested and brought back to London. And the craziest thing is, had Crippen, yet another error in judgment on Crippen's side, had he have decided to board a ship to America, where he still held citizenship, the police would not have been able to arrest him and bring him immediately back to England. They would have had to have gone through a lengthy extradition process, which may have even failed. However, choosing to go to Canada, which at this time was still part of the British Empire, so still technically governed by the same laws, the police were able to arrest them and bring them immediately back without having to go through any sort of legal process. And so on the 18th of October 1910, Dr. Crippen stood trial at the Old Bailey in London. Trial lasted for 4 days. The trial focused mainly on the identifiable marks on the torso, so the scar that had been found that was identical to the one described in Cora's medical records. It also focused heavily on the discovery of the hyoscine in Cora's remains, and it was known that Dr. Crippen had bought this drug from a local chemist prior to Cora's disappearance. But during the trial, Crippen remained steadfast in his story that Cora had left him with Bruce and they had gone back to America, and that was all that had happened. He also claimed that the remains that they found in his basement must have been there from before they moved in. Now, despite the fact that by this point they'd lived in the house for 5 years, so that's quite a long time, and I think you would have expected a much greater rate of decomposition by that point had the torso been in there from way before they moved in. Now, his defense did raise an interesting point, and they stated that the alleged scar that was found on the torso was actually just folded tissue. due to the fact that it had hair follicles growing out of it. They argued that hair follicles would not be present if it was a scar. But that wasn't all that the prosecution had. They adduced further evidence, including a piece of material that was found with the torso. Now, this material they believed belonged to a set of pajamas, set of men's pajamas. They claimed that this particular set of pajamas were a gift from Cora to her husband, and that when they searched the house, they found the bottoms of the pajamas but no top. They also found curlers. They also found curlers with the torso that had strands of bleached blonde hair, which were consistent with Cora's hair. So throughout the whole of the trial, Dr. Crippen was said to have shown no remorse whatsoever, never showed a shred of emotion. In fact, it seems that he was more concerned with protecting Ethel's reputation during the trial than he was about his wife. So at the end of the trial, the jury took just 27 minutes to reach their verdict, and they found Dr. Crippen guilty of murder. Back in the early 1900s, a conviction for murder would have meant a death penalty, which is exactly what Crippen got handed. So at 9 AM on the 23rd of November 1910 at Pentonville Prison, Dr. Crippen was hung. Shortly afterwards, Ethel stood trial. Now, to many people's surprise, she was found not guilty and was acquitted of any involvement in Cora's death. And she moved to another country so that she could start a new life. There are people even nowadays that think that maybe Dr. Crippen was innocent. Personally, I think that there's a lot of circumstantial evidence that points towards Crippen having murdered his wife. Whether Ethel was involved or not, who knows? So that is the case of Dr. Crippen, and interesting one. You can see why people have made films out of it. It's got everything, hasn't it? It's got a bit of everything, that one. So I just can't get over so many silly mistakes that he made. But ultimately, whatever you think about Cora, you know, she doesn't sound like the nicest of women, but nobody deserves to die in that manner. So, you know, she got justice in the end. I hope that you enjoyed that case. Remember to hit the subscribe button if you haven't already. On this channel, I do talk about true crime, I talk about paranormal, and I also talk about spirituality, law of attraction and manifestation. So what I'm planning to do, because this channel is relatively new, is to separate those three subjects out, because I appreciate that not everybody wants to know. You know, some of you will be here just for the true crime stuff, some of you will be here for the spookier stuff, and some people will be here for the self-development, law of attraction stuff. Or if you're like me, you'll love it all. But what I want is to, I will pick a specific day, so you will know if you're here for the true crime, it's going to be on this day. If you're here for the other things, they'll be on set days. So I hope that you will stick around, and until next time, take care.